I used to not believe in coming back, especially not from something as invisible as insomnia. Most people think of sleep as something simple, natural, automatic. But when you've been through what I've been through, you realize sleep is a miracle. And losing it? It's like losing the light inside your soul. I didn't just lose sleep. I lost my peace, my trust in my body, my confidence, and some days, even my will to live. It started slowly. A few restless nights, a little tossing and turning. I thought it was stress, or maybe too much coffee. I laughed it off at first, but before I knew it, the nights turned longer, darker, heavier. The bed became a battlefield, a place of fear, a reminder of failure. You lie there, still, so still, but your mind runs marathons. What if I don't sleep again tonight? What if I get sick? What if this is forever? And when the world goes silent, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you feel like the last person awake on earth. Everyone else is safe in dreamland while you wrestle demons in your head. I tried everything. Melatonin, chamomile tea, YouTube meditations, sleep hygiene checklists, even pills I swore I'd never take. I followed every expert tip and still, sleep refused to come. But worst of all were the thoughts. That harsh, cruel voice inside that said, "You're broken. You'll never be normal again. This is your fault." I was scared to lie down, scared to close my eyes, scared of the moment I'd wake up again in the middle of the night, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer I could survive like this. And then, somewhere in the middle of this quiet chaos, I stumbled across something I'd heard of before but never really believed in: CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It sounded clinical, cold, like something you'd read in a psychology textbook. I didn't expect it to help, but what I didn't know was that CBT isn't about sleeping better. It's about thinking differently. And when your thoughts are the very thing keeping you awake, that changes everything. This isn't a success story wrapped in a perfect bow. I'm not going to tell you I was cured overnight. But what I will tell you is this: there's a way back. And if you're tired, not just tired, but soul-deep exhausted, then maybe, just maybe, this story is for you. Because the night is long, but it doesn't last forever, and neither will your insomnia. Let me show you how I found my way back, not to perfect sleep, but to peace. It didn't take long for my sleepless nights to turn into something else, something far more frightening. At first, it was just annoying. You know that feeling, right? You check the clock. It's 12:43 a.m., still awake. No big deal. You roll over, fluff your pillow, breathe deep, but it doesn't help. You check again. 1:26 a.m., still nothing. Then 2:18 a.m. That's when it begins to creep in. This quiet panic, crawling up from the pit of your stomach to your chest. You start calculating. If I fall asleep now, I'll get 4 hours. If I fall asleep in the next 15 minutes, I'll still get 3.5. But you don't. You just lie there, staring at the ceiling, heart beating faster with every passing minute. And soon, you're not just tired. You're terrified. I remember one night in particular. I had a big meeting the next morning. I told myself, tonight, I must sleep. That word, must, was like a curse. The harder I tried, the more impossible it became. At around 3 a.m., I found myself sitting at the edge of the bed, hands shaking, chest tight, tears quietly falling. It was no longer about sleep. It was about survival. My mind started telling me stories. If you don't sleep, you'll ruin everything tomorrow. If this keeps happening, you'll lose your job. You'll get sick. You'll collapse. You'll go crazy. You'll never sleep again. That last one echoed the loudest. I didn't know it then, but I had started building a belief system based entirely on fear. I believed I needed 8 hours, or I'd break down, I believed waking up in the night meant failure. I believed that if I couldn't sleep, something was deeply wrong with me, and those beliefs became my truth. Every time I got into bed, it felt like stepping into a courtroom where I had to prove I was worthy of rest. Every heartbeat felt like evidence against me. Every sigh, every toss and turn, proof that I had failed again. I became obsessed with sleep. Ironically, that obsession stole it from me. I researched everything: blue light, cortisol levels, magnesium, binaural beats. I changed my diet, cut caffeine. I even stopped using my phone after 8 p.m. But no matter what I did, my body refused to let go. It was as if my brain had forgotten how to sleep, and deep down, I started to believe maybe I was broken. Worse, I began to fear my own bedroom. Just the act of brushing my teeth and walking toward my bed was enough to trigger anxiety. I'd lie down and feel my heart already racing, not from anything outside, but from the anticipation of another failure. I couldn't explain it to others. Everyone struggles with sleep, they'd say. But this wasn't just struggling. This was drowning quietly, night after night, and then came the daytime symptoms. Brain fog so thick I felt like a ghost walking through meetings. Nausea, chest pain, headaches. I couldn't concentrate. I forgot simple things. And worst of all, I began to fear that I was permanently damaged. Friends started saying I looked tired all the time. My smile became fake. Conversations felt like heavy lifting. I canceled plans, stopped working out, stopped laughing. But the scariest part wasn't the nights or the symptoms. It was the silence. Because no one really understood. Unless you've lived it, you don't get it. You don't understand the mental torture of being trapped in a body that refuses to rest. You don't know the fear of watching everyone else drift off to sleep while you sit awake wondering if you'll survive another night. That's the thing about insomnia, it's invisible. And when something is invisible, people assume it's not that serious. But I'll tell you now, sleeplessness can be one of the loneliest, most soul-crushing forms of suffering. Eventually, my world shrank. I planned my days around sleep, anxiety. I'd cancel morning plans just in case I didn't sleep the night before. I stopped going on trips. I became hyper-aware of everything. What I ate, when I drank water, how long I sat in the sun. Everything was a potential threat to my sleep. And the more I feared it, the more power it gained. Looking back, I realize now, I wasn't just afraid of not sleeping. I was afraid of what not sleeping meant. I made it mean I was weak, flawed, a failure. But there was something deeper underneath it all. The fear that it would never get better. That thought, the one that whispered, "This is forever," was the one that hurt the most. And it was that very fear that led me to CBT. Not because I believed in it at first, but because I was desperate. Because after trying everything else, I had nowhere left to turn. CBT didn't promise quick fixes. It didn't tell me how to fall asleep in 10 minutes. But it did offer something I hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of control. It started with just a pen and paper, 2 columns, one for my fearful thoughts, and one for the truths I was too afraid to believe yet. At first, I didn't even believe what I was writing in the positive column, but I wrote it anyway, and that's where the healing began. When I first heard about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I didn't think it would help. It sounded like one of those clinical terms that therapists throw around in textbooks, detached, mechanical, to rational. But I wasn't looking for rational. I was drowning. I needed something to hold on to. And for some reason, even though I didn't believe in it, I gave CBT a chance. Not because I was hopeful, but because I was hopeless. That night, I sat on the floor with a notebook. Just me, a pen and a tired, desperate mind. I remembered something I had read. You can't always control how you feel, but you can change how you think. And for someone who was completely at the mercy of their emotions, that felt strangely empowering. So I drew 2 columns. The left side, old beliefs. The right side, new truths. Simple. But what happened next changed everything. In the left column, I began pouring out every fear that haunted me during the night. If I don't sleep tonight, I'll ruin tomorrow. I need exactly 8 hours or I'll collapse. If I keep waking up at night, it means I'm broken. I'll have insomnia forever. If I don't fix this soon, I'll go crazy. I'll be stuck on sleeping pills for the rest of my life. As I wrote them down, I realized just how much fear I was carrying. These weren't just thoughts. They were beliefs I had quietly accepted as truth. No wonder my body was stuck in fight or flight mode. Every night felt like survival, and then, slowly, I moved to the right column. It felt strange at first, almost like lying to myself. But I forced myself to write, even if I sleep little tonight, I can still function. Plenty of people survive and even thrive on less than 8 hours. Waking up is normal, everyone does it. My sleep will improve over time, it already is, even if slowly. I'm healing, not broken. I can trust my body to find balance again. These statements didn't feel real yet. I didn't believe them. But there was something powerful in simply writing them, because writing made them visible. And once they were visible, they could be challenged. I started making a ritual out of it. Every night before bed, I would open my notebook and review my 2 columns. Sometimes I'd cry. Other nights I'd argue with the page. But slowly, something began to shift. I noticed for the first time how my brain would repeat the same fear-based thoughts every night, almost like a broken record. What if I don't sleep again? What if I fail tomorrow? What if this ruins me? But instead of spiraling with those thoughts, I'd whisper to myself, that's the old belief. And then I'd counter it with something from the right column. It's okay, my body will rest when it's ready. It wasn't instant magic, I didn't fall asleep right away. But I began to notice little wins. One night I woke up at 3 a.m. and instead of panicking, I said, it's okay, I'll either fall back asleep or I'll read a book, no big deal. And to my surprise, I actually fell back asleep. Another night I only got 4 hours, but I went to work anyway. And it wasn't a disaster. I was tired, yes, but I was functional. That day, I wrote in my journal, I survived a bad night. That means I can survive another. CBT taught me something I had never been told. The real enemy of insomnia isn't the lack of sleep. It's the fear of not sleeping. And fear feeds on silence. By putting my thoughts on paper, I was breaking that silence. Over time, I added more layers to my CBT practice. I noticed that many of my fears came from perfectionism. I believed I had to sleep perfectly, 8 hours uninterrupted deep sleep every night, or else I'd fail. CBT helped me challenge that. I wrote things like, some nights will be rough, that's okay. Rest is not the same as sleep. Lying down and relaxing still helps. My body knows how to recover even if my mind doesn't understand it yet. One of the most powerful moments came when I added a new thought to the right column. Sleep is a natural process. I don't need to force it. I just need to allow it. That one changed everything. Because for so long, I had been trying to achieve sleep, as if it were a goal I could chase. But sleep is not a goal, it's a surrender. And CBT helped me surrender, one belief at a time. I began practicing what I call mental loosening. Every time a fearful thought popped up, I would gently label it. That's fear talking, and I'd return to my breath, or a peaceful memory, or even just gratitude for the fact that I was resting. That's another thing CBT gave me, the power to reframe. Instead of, I didn't sleep enough, I'd say, I gave my body a chance to rest. Instead of, I failed again, I'd say, I'm learning. Healing isn't linear. Eventually, I stopped obsessing over hours. I stopped counting how long I slept. I started focusing on how I felt instead. And some nights, I'd only sleep 3 or 4 hours. But because I no longer panicked about it, I actually felt okay the next day. You see, CBT isn't just about sleep. It's about reclaiming your relationship with your thoughts. It's about realizing that Just because you think something doesn't make it true. It's about breaking the cycle of fear and replacing it with curiosity, gentleness, and trust. Today, I still keep that notebook. The left column has faded. I barely write in it anymore. But the right column, it's alive, it's growing, and in many ways, it saved my life. There's something strange that happens when you live in survival mode for too long. You stop trusting yourself. You stop trusting your body. You stop trusting your mind. And eventually, you stop trusting your own thoughts. I didn't realize it at first. But the real work of healing my insomnia wasn't about fixing my sleep. It was about rewriting the story I told myself every day. The quiet, invisible script that had been playing in the background of my mind for years. We all have one. Some people walk around with stories like, "I'm not good enough," or "everything has to be perfect," or "if I don't control this, everything will fall apart." For me, my inner narrative had become, "You are fragile. You can't handle life without sleep. You are one bad night away from breaking down." That voice wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It whispered, calmly, persistently, so subtly that I didn't even question it, until CBT gave me the tools to step back and see it. It was the first time I'd ever sat down and asked myself, where are these thoughts coming from? Who taught me to think this way? And the answer wasn't some traumatic childhood moment. It wasn't a dramatic memory. It was repetition. These thoughts had become so familiar. They felt like truth. But truth is not the same as habit. And just because something feels true doesn't mean it is. CBT helped me put distance between myself and my thoughts. It taught me one of the most powerful lessons of my life. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. At first, this felt abstract, philosophical. But then one night it hit me in the most ordinary way. I was lying in bed, wide awake. That familiar panic started to rise. Here we go again. Another bad night. Tomorrow's ruined. But instead of spiraling, I said, wait, that's just a thought. I imagined it floating by like a cloud. I didn't try to fight it. I just watched it pass. And it did pass. That moment was small, but it cracked something open in me. Because for the first time, I didn't identify with the fear. I saw the fear. I named it, and I let it go. That's what rewriting your inner narrative is. Not deleting the thoughts, but recognizing them, questioning them, and choosing a different response. From that point on, I started noticing patterns everywhere. How quickly I jumped to worst-case scenarios. How often I used absolute words like always, never, forever. How I clung to beliefs like, if I don't fix this soon, I'll fall apart. I started asking better questions. Is that really true? What evidence do I have? Have there been nights where I barely slept and still survived the next day? The answer was always yes. And with each yes, my inner narrative began to soften. Instead of, I'll be ruined tomorrow, I said, let's just see what tomorrow brings. One moment at a time. Instead of I'm broken, I told myself, I'm learning. This is part of healing. Instead of I can't do this, I whispered, I've already done so much. I'm still here. Some nights these new thoughts felt hollow, like they didn't quite fit yet. But I spoke them anyway, like trying on new clothes. And over time, they started to feel more natural than the fear. I also realized something else, something subtle but life-changing. I didn't have to believe every thought that entered my mind. This was radical to me. For most of my life, I treated my thoughts as facts. If my brain said, you're not safe, then I wasn't. If it said, you're going to fall apart, then I braced for collapse. But through CBT, I began to see that thoughts are suggestions, not sentences. They're echoes of past experiences shaped by emotion and habit, and I had the right to challenge them, to change them, to say, "Thanks for the warning, brain, but I'm choosing a new story." I even began creating personal mantras, not forced affirmations but gentle reminders rooted in my own journey. I'd say, "My value doesn't depend on how well I sleep. I am more than my tiredness." Peace begins with permission, not perfection. I wrote them on sticky notes, put them by my bed, in my bathroom mirror, on my phone lock screen, anywhere the old narrative tried to sneak back in. The old voice still came back sometimes, but now I had a new voice to meet it with. One of the most powerful tools I used during this phase was journaling, not just venting, but structured reflection. Every morning I'd write down, what thoughts came up last night? How did I respond? What could I try differently tonight? And every night I'd write, one thing I'm proud of today, one fear I'm letting go of, one gentle thought to carry into sleep. It sounds simple, but over weeks and months, this reconditioning began to work. Sleep didn't return all at once, but the fear around sleep began to fade. And with that fear gone, rest became possible again. And that's when I realized something no doctor had ever told me. The key to better sleep isn't in your body, it's in your relationship with your mind. Rewriting my inner narrative didn't just help me sleep, it changed how I lived. I became more compassionate with myself, more forgiving of bad days, more accepting of uncertainty. And I realized the goal isn't to never struggle again, the goal is to struggle with grace, to meet fear with curiosity, to respond to chaos with softness. That's the real CBT, not a worksheet, not a therapist's jargon, but the daily courageous choice to meet your thoughts and choose which ones get to stay. For most of my journey with insomnia, I was fighting to fall asleep, fighting my own body, fighting every thought that dared suggest, maybe you won't sleep tonight. I lived in a constant state of resistance, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, restless legs, a mind stuck in what-ifs. Every night became a battle between who I wanted to be and what I feared I had become. And what I've learned since then is this: you can't heal from something while hating it. You can't hate your body into rest. You can't shame your thoughts into silence. You can't fight your way into sleep. At some point, I had to make a choice: keep resisting or start accepting, and it didn't happen overnight. Acceptance didn't feel natural. It felt like giving up. I remember the first night I tried. I whispered to myself, if I don't sleep tonight, that's okay. I'll still make it through tomorrow. At first, my mind rebelled. No, that's dangerous thinking. What if you're exhausted? What if you crash? But I said it again. It's okay. I've been through worse. I'll get through this too. It wasn't magical. I didn't instantly fall asleep. But something inside me softened. For the first time in months, my body wasn't bracing for war. It was listening, receiving, allowing. That night, I didn't get great sleep, but I got something better: peace. Because peace is the foundation for rest. Not effort, not control. Peace. And that's when I realized I needed to build a whole new identity around sleep. Not one based on perfection, not one based on fear, but one rooted in self-trust, curiosity, and surrender. So I started asking myself, what does someone who sleeps peacefully believe about sleep? They probably don't think about sleep all day. They don't measure their worth by their hours of rest. They don't panic at the first sign of a sleepless night. They trust that sleep, like breath, comes and goes, naturally. And I realized I could choose to think like that person even before I became them. I began imagining this peaceful version of myself. Someone who read before bed without caring what time it was. Someone who treated wakefulness in the night not as a crisis, but as a moment of stillness. Someone who didn't panic over sleep because they knew, deep down, that their body was wise. I called this new version of me the sleeper who trusts. And every day, I stepped into that identity, one thought at a time. Instead of saying, "I hope I sleep tonight," I said, "Sleep will come when it comes. My job is to create space for it." Instead of checking the clock during the night, I kept my eyes closed and breathed deeply, reminding myself, rest is enough. My body is healing. Even when I'm awake, I changed my relationship with the bed itself. Before, the bed had become a place of tension, a trigger. As soon as I touched the pillow, my brain would scream, "Sleep now or else." So I redefined what the bed meant. I told myself, this is a place for rest, for quiet, for comfort, not performance. Some nights, I didn't even try to sleep. I just lay there listening to the sound of my breath, imagining waves on a beach or reading a calming book without urgency, and slowly, the bed became safe again. I also stopped tracking sleep. No more counting hours, no more apps, no more charts. Because every time I quantified my rest, I reinforced the idea that my worth was tied to a number. So I let it go. Instead, I started asking, did I feel calm last night? Did I give myself space to rest? Did I treat myself with compassion? And that became my new measure of success. One of the most healing moments came when I had a terrible night, maybe 2 hours of sleep, broken, restless. But I woke up and smiled, because instead of thinking, "Oh no, this is going to ruin me," I thought, "So what? It's just one night." That thought freed me, because for the first time, I truly believed it. It wasn't optimism. It was truth. I had survived worse. I was more resilient than I thought, and sleep was no longer my enemy. It was just sleep, a friend who shows up when I stop chasing them. That's the paradox of recovery. The moment I stopped demanding sleep was the moment it began to return. Not perfectly, not every night, but enough. Enough to live, to function, to dream again, and more importantly, enough to trust. Today, I still have the occasional rough night, but it doesn't shake me anymore, because I'm not the same person I was before. I'm no longer someone who struggles with insomnia. I'm someone who listens to their body, who understands their thoughts, who meets discomfort with grace. That's my sleep identity now, and you can build yours too. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to stop fighting and start trusting. Let your breath guide you. Let your thoughts pass, like clouds. Let your body feel safe again, because when resistance melts, rest finds its way home. I used to think healing came from outside, from pills, from doctors, from techniques and hacks and tips on the internet. And for a long time, I chased all of that, desperate for a fix, desperate for someone or something to save me from myself. But what I've come to realize is this: the power to heal was never out there. It was always within me, not as some grand miracle, not as instant relief, but as small, daily choices, gentle shifts in how I think, quiet acts of trust when fear was screaming louder. That's what CBT gave me, not a cure, but a mirror to see the stories I was living in, a mirror to reflect back the strength I had forgotten, a mirror to remind me that just because I believed something didn't mean it was true. I'm not the same person I was when this story began. That person thought they were broken. They believed they'd never sleep again. They feared their own mind. Now, I see things differently. I still have hard nights, but they don't define me. Because I've built something stronger than sleep routines or sleep hygiene. I've built resilience, and that resilience comes from self-trust, from letting go, from knowing that rest isn't earned, it's allowed. And peace doesn't come from control, it comes from surrender. If you're still in the middle of the storm, I want you to know something. You're not weak. You're not doing it wrong, and you're definitely not alone. You're just tired. And tired people don't need fixing. They need kindness. They need space. They need someone to say, "It's okay, you're safe now." Let me be that voice for you today. You are safe. You are not broken. And you can heal. I'm living proof of that. And while this may sound like the end of a story, it's really just the beginning. Because CBT didn't just help me with sleep. It taught me how to handle anxiety, how to catch panic before it swells, how to shift my response to fear itself. And in the next chapter of this journey, I want to take you there with me. In the next episode, I'll share how I use these same tools to overcome daily panic attacks, the kind that sneak up at work, in the car, or during a quiet evening. If you've ever felt your heart race for no reason, if you've ever feared losing control in public, if you've ever felt trapped in your own body, then you'll want to hear what comes next. Because just like sleep, peace from panic is possible too. And I'll show you how I found it. 1. Breath. One thought. One moment at a time. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, rest easy. You're already on your way back.